Welcome to the next session on traditional knowledge. Main aspects of this particular traditional knowledge is the challenges. What are the issues to the traditional knowledge, or what are the present day challenges that we are facing about the traditional knowledge? The first challenge is the modernization and the displacement of tribal communities. Due to the rapid industrialization, due to the rapid displacement of the people from one area to the another area because of the n number of factors, for example, the construction of dams, the building of roads, the setting up of factories, industries, have displaced these tribal people from one locality to the other locality. These tribal people, they tends to lose their originality to a particular piece of location, and hence their survival are at stake. There is less support from the government or the other agencies which are there in order to protect the rights of the traditional knowledge holders. Nothing substantial is being done to protect their rights, to protect them from vanishing in relation to their existence in a particular locality. Hence, most of the times these traditional people feel that they are left out, they are not secured, they are not recognized in a natural setup. Thirdly, there exists a communication gap between the elders and the young people. Now, we all know that traditional knowledge is orally transmitted from elder generation to the younger generations. But in the recent era, in the modern era, the young people, they tends to isolate themselves from the elder people, and hence their knowledge or their practices which these tribal communities do, they are not being passed from one generation to the other generations. Fourthly, biopiracy is also considered as one of the threat to traditional knowledge, because the commercialization of the resources, the utilization of the traditional knowledge without the proper authentication or without the proper authorization to the indigenous or the local people who are associated with such types of knowledge is being carried on at different jurisdictions for the variety of purposes. These challenges to traditional knowledge is one of the concerned areas which every stakeholders have to take into consideration to protect the rights of the indigenous people or the local communities before they are vanished out from the vicinity of the forest. One such example is Andaman and Nicobar tribes. They are being exploited in such a way, the outsiders, they treat them in a very rude manner, and hence their survival are at stake in this present era. The government also, they are not taking enough adequate steps to protect them, or they are not giving due attention to such tribals who are residing in such areas, and hence nothing is done substantially to protect them. In order to deal with such challenges or such issues, Indian government have made legislations to protect the traditional knowledge. The legislations mainly they are in the form of Biological Diversity Act 2002, the Patents Act 1970, the Protection of Plant Varieties and the Farmers Act 2001, and the Geographical Indications 2003. These are the few legislations which have made an attempt to protect traditional knowledge, to protect the loss of traditional knowledge for the benefit of the people. Now, I will be stating about one of the loss to traditional knowledge, or one of the challenge to traditional knowledge, is the biopiracy. You must be knowing that when biodiversity related knowledge or biodiversity related issues is collected without the permission from the owners of these resources, that is, without giving due acknowledgement to the tribal or the local communities, and they are being patented for the commercial use, it will lead to biopiracy. The examples of biopiracy, as stated before, the neem case, the turmeric, the basmati rice, these are the three main unique examples of the biopiracy, which is or which symbolizes the misappropriation of traditional knowledge to a larger extent. Though we have Biological Diversity Act 2002 in picture, which specifically states about the conservation of the biological diversity, secondly, the sustainable use of the biological resources, and thirdly, the fair and equitable sharing of the biological resources in the future aspects. Biopiracy is generally a theft of genetic materials, especially plants and other biological materials, which is being patented in different jurisdictions by various countries for their own purpose. One such example is the case of the patent that was granted to neem. The US Patent Office, they granted a patent on the use on the traditional properties of the neem, which was being widely used in India. The seeds that is being derived from the neem, it holds antifungal properties, or it holds nutritional value, which is helpful to the larger patients across the world. Thus, the US, they have been granted patent on such aspects or on such antifungal properties of the neem that was there. The US, they have granted patent to the fungal properties of the neem, and the seeds of the neem was being patented by them. India opposed the patent by claiming that the fungal properties of neem was known to us since a very long time, and hence this knowledge was being utilized for centuries in Indian perspective. The oil from neem, it has been considered, or it has been used traditionally by the farmers for ages, and it was neither a novel idea or nor was something new that was to be patented by the US Patent Office. The patent was finally revoked by the European Patent Office, and hence this issue created a huge considerable amount of discussions among the people or among the Indian people in a global aspect. Likewise, the case of turmeric and basmati was also one such examples of biopiracy, which is considered as one of the cases in which the US have made an attempt to provide patent to such aspects, and hence India has made an arrangements in such a way that the patent should not be granted to such an aspects if the practices or if such knowledge originally exist in our country. So finally, the Indian government, they have made an attempt to bring out a collaborative project with the help of the CSR, that is with the help of the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, and they have made this digital repository to document the traditional knowledge in their own way. So the cases on the wound healing properties of turmeric, the antifungal properties of neem, the basmati rice case, they acted as a catalyst for the Indian government to formulate the Tkdl for the benefit of the people in India. So Tkdl, as stated just now, is India's first repository which holds the or which are rich in the traditional knowledge aspects, and it holds many information about the usage of traditional knowledge. Coming up to how Tkdl evolved, as rightly now stated, that it is a digital repository. It is a tool of information which has been clubbed in a platform in which the traditional knowledge is being protected, and it is not only protected, but it is easily accessible in the digital form to the various stakeholders. Vinod Gupta was one of the first person who devised this modern classification protecting the traditional knowledge with the concern or with the collaboration of the CSIR. Now, what is the importance of traditional knowledge? Why such library? Why such repository was created by the Indian government? If we will see, the main objective of Tkdl is to protect the ancient and traditional knowledge of the country from being misappropriated or from being exploited through biopiracy. The context plays a very important factor in relation to the usage of the Tkdl. The second important legislation with relation to the protection of traditional knowledge is the Biological Diversity Act 2002. As stated in the previous lecture, this legislation has been enacted by the Indian Parliament on the tune of the CBD, that is the Conservation of Biological Diversity, which came into force in the year 1992. The main objective of biological diversity are the conservation of biological diversity, the sustainable use of its components, and the equitable sharing of the benefits arising out of the use of biological resources. Now, before understanding the other provisions of the Biological Diversity Act 2002, we first have to understand what is the biological resources. What do you understand by the benefit claimers? What do you understand by the commercial utilization? Now, these three terminologies plays a very important role in order to protect the traditional knowledge. As going to the historical development of the Biological Diversity Act 2002, Article 8 Clause J of the CBD. It states about the usage, or it provides about the rights, or you can say the protection to the traditional knowledge in the form of using the biological resources, the genetic resources, and the utilization of the biological resources in the various aspects. So, under the definition clause of the Biological Diversity Act 2002, section 2 primarily states about these three terminologies. Now, what is biological resources? The biological resources has been identified, or it has been interpreted in various aspects. It has been the true meaning to this particular terminology has been given it has not only defined by the Indian authors, but also there are international connotations or perspective to the biological resources. Now, going to by this statute, that is the Biological Diversity Act 2002, the biological resources means the plants, the animals, the microorganisms, the practices, and the other genetic material which is present in the forest, or which is very much important in biodiversity conservation, has to be given due recognitions or has to be protected in a sustainable manner. So, even the smallest plant, even the minute particles, the animals, the microorganisms, the other species that is present in the ecosystem, and not only this, the genetic material have been classified or have been clubbed under the definition of the biological resources. Their economic, social, and the actual potential of such biological resources is only known to these indigenous or the local communities, because how to utilize them, how to make out different products from them, how to derive useful practices in order to preserve the biodiversity is only known to such tribal people or the local communities who are residing in such areas. This biological resources has been given importance in various locations, in various aspects by various countries. The second is important definition that one should know is the commercial utilization. Now, as the name suggests, commercial in nature, that the traditional knowledge, the practices these communities or the indigenous people who they are practicing, they have to utilize these biological resources in such a way that it should not harm or it should not be degraded beyond the permissible limit. Because commercially utilizing the resources and giving due acknowledgement to the tribal people is one of the essence of the Biological Diversity Act. To some of the aspects that we have seen in these two lectures, we should give due importance or legal recognitions to the traditional knowledge. The protection to the indigenous communities or the local communities is the need of an hour. Secondly, we should all know that these tribal communities, they possess great deal of knowledge, and for the biodiversity conservation, their involvement in the mainstream has to be there in every manner. Many of us even don't know that what is traditional knowledge, what are the importance of traditional knowledge, what are the examples of traditional knowledge, and hence we do not pay attention or do not pay heed to such knowledge that exists in our country since time immemorial. Until and unless our very own traditional knowledge is being protected, we will not be able to justify ourselves with respect to such protection being given to the traditional knowledge by the another countries. The indigenous or the local communities, they have to be given due protection because they are the holders of traditional knowledge. They are adopting sustainable methods to protect the traditional knowledge which existed since ancestral times. So, we can say that these communities have to be duly recognized by the government and the other agencies, and they should be given due acknowledgement before any patent is being granted to them by the various countries. Indian government should realize their importance, their necessity, their utility for the economic as well as other cultural aspects. Thank you.